Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the July 30th meeting of the Curriculum Committee. I hope everyone's having an enjoyable summer, but it's time to get back at it again, so I will call this meeting to order and ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. Number 2, Curriculum Committee meeting minutes of our last meeting from May 30th. If anyone has any additions, deletions, corrections, if not, I will look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion, need a second. Second from Candace. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right. We'll move on to number 3, digital resource renewals. Dr. Breedlove, if you'd like to take us through those 3 items.
Sure. I've given you a handout on 3 items that are repeat items. We've had them in the district now. These are not new. Curriculum and Associates iReady program that we use in both K-5 and in 6-8. It's a diagnostic tool for teachers in mathematics, and then in the middle school math and reading. It is at the cost of $205,000. This is a reduction in cost of over $300,000 that we spent in the past, because we have worked with our principals and our teachers to clean up what is being used and what is not. We do this annually and look how can we use the money most wisely. And it is a valuable resource, but some schools and some teachers prefer it more than others. All schools have resources. We make various options available. And so iReady is a tool that we will continue to use for the 2019-2020 school year.
Could I just interrupt you for a clarification?
Sure.
You're talking about a significant reduction in the cost. Is that because we've declined to take some options that iReady has, or there are some schools that are opting out of using it altogether?
No, it's options. When we talk about the toolbox is very expensive, but not all teachers and not all schools were utilizing it. And so what we did is we looked at that, and some teachers like their own resources compared to iReady toolbox, and so they just weren't using it. And so when you ask them what did they prefer, obviously they preferred their own tools or other resources that they have access to. And so going one by one through all of our schools, who's using it and who's not. And so we were able to reduce that cost significantly for the district so that we can use it on other tools that they may prefer.
Well, I just wanted to ask you also, that savings, was that anticipated in preparation for the budget, or did we budget for the amount and now we're seeing a savings below the budgeted amount?
We do this annually, every year. For all of our resources, we look at access to these resources. And so across the board, and when we present next curriculum committee, we're going to see changes in what is being utilized each year as our teachers shift in and out and new resources come available and what they prefer. We always want to give a handful of resources that teachers can choose from. And so it's going to ebb and flow year to year.
Well, what I meant was, in preparation for the 2019-20 budget.
Yes.
Did we budget that $500,000 for iReady and now we're only utilizing 205, or did we just budget 205 because we knew the numbers of what we were just going to propose?
Yes, sir. We budgeted for $300,000 for iReady, and just based on what we expected to spend, we expect to spend over $300,000 on it. But due to cleanup, it's almost a zero-sum game where you take from one and you add to another because they're using a different tool at that point. College Board is the second item there, and we have now, this is, I think, in our 3rd year of purchasing the SAT for all of our students. Of course, the PSAT we've done as long as the state has provided us for that, with that, but we also add additional seats with the PSAT. And then the PSAT 8 is something that we provide as a district to give us insight on students and really trying to see who has the AP potential before they get into high school, and so that we can have those discussions with every student. So College Board, and this is the same cost, or slightly more than we've bought because their costs went up. And so, of course, they pass it on to us, but it's really not that much more than we've paid in the years past. And then lastly, Apex Learning. This is our second year of Apex Learning. It took the place of OdysseyWare, which was our credit recovery and other software that we used. Apex is approved by the state of North Carolina, and it is a digital curriculum that we provide our students, not just for credit recovery, but also for new coursework as well. So those are our digital resources for this month. And like I said, next month, we will have another slew of resources that we will purchase as we continue to try and clean up, moving everything to an August 1st or really, we would like to have an August 1st deadline on all of our resources and spend the month of July kind of cleaning things up. Any questions?
Any questions from a member of the committee, Tina, about these programs?
Nope, I'm good.
Just one thing, I know we're only 1 year into it, but how would you rate Apex Learning? I mean, it's a little early probably from.
Yeah, it has, we like it a lot better. We had an issue with OdysseyWare that we've used in the past because the program itself wasn't rigorous enough that we felt for our students. And for example, if you were given a unit within Earth Science, for example, if you were taking that, you could go through that unit and it would not. If you were asked a question, it would repeat that question. If you got it wrong, it would repeat the exact same question in the exact same order of answers. So you click enough buttons and it gets reset enough times, whether you know the question or not, you were getting it right at some point and moving on. All right. So it was almost gaming the system. And so Apex is very credible. It has worked well for us last year. Students seem to like it as well, and it has done a good job for us last year. So we will continue to use Apex.
Any other questions, Candace? If not, we'll look for a motion to approve on and move on to the full board for final approval.
Motion.
Have a motion to approve. Look for a second.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All righty. That will be reported on favorably to the full board. All right. Number 4, sole source approvals.
We have,
Breedlove.
yes, we have 2 sole source approvals. One is Outteach, and the handout provided kind of discusses Outteach. Outteach is really an engaging element that allows us to work with schools, and we have 2 that we are piloting and using federal funds to do this. We are piloting those at Western Union and Union Elementary, as both of these schools work towards a STEM focus as well as just problem-based type of learning with their students. They are looking at Outteach as a way to engage their students in outdoor learning, in an outdoor learning space. So not only is the space being built for an outdoor classroom, but it's also, there's a professional development element to this, and it's school-wide. And so they will use it in their K-5 classrooms with their students. So we are, this is a nonprofit organization, and I don't know if you know this, Craig Horn learned about Outteach, and he suggested that they come visit Union County, and that's how we got to kind of know them. And it looks to be something that we may, if things go as planned, look to do at other schools down the road.
So describe an outside classroom,
Yes.
basically a setting for students, and I assume it's about natural sciences, programs like that. If you're outside, you're studying outside.
A lot of it is science, but it's also, it's not just, we're not just going to limit it to science. You could teach an ELA class out there. What we really want to do is just provide students with an authentic learning environment and show how what they are learning can be applied in a hands-on outdoor learning environment.
And this is for all grades. It's K-5.
Yes.
Is there any physical construction involved in the outdoor classroom? Are those completed or ready to go for the beginning of the school year?
They are continuing to work on those.
I don't think that we're spending any funding on the actual facility part. I know that just yesterday I saw on Twitter that at Western Union Elementary School, they were partnering with Elevation Church, who wanted to volunteer to come in. They had 10, 20, 30 volunteers on site, actually working with school staff and parents on an actual development of a building project. So I think that there's a natural inclination for partnerships here to help with the actual physical space. So I think the funding that we're asking for approval is really to be spent on professional development, programming, and those kinds of things.
Okay.
Actually, it's really about project-based learning using the environment around you. And it's something that if these two schools see it to be very successful, I'd love to see this, and at least in all of our elementary schools could benefit from something like this, I believe.
Is this a one-year grant and you have to reapply for the programming each year?
This is for over 2 year. We have a contract for 2 years, I believe. Yes, looking at Dr. Hoxton back there, it is a 2-year program. But at the end of 2 years, what we expect will happen is it's really a train the trainer. So we are training those initial teachers this year, another group next year, and it will grow within the school so that all teachers have access to that classroom and understand how to use it and access to the lessons.
So this 40,000 is not necessarily an ongoing cost each 2-year cycle for the school?
No, sir. Yeah, after the first 2 years, they technically will be done. Now, if they choose to re-up, they can do that. But what we would like to do is move on to other schools, and especially if we are seeing the positive side of learning and what we expect out of this experiential learning model.
So we would not be expanding it before the 2-year window was up, that we would wait to see what happened.
We want to track our data. And now if a principal takes a visit to Western Union or Union and from another school and says, you know what, that's what we need, what we would like to do. Obviously, we would help try and support that principal and finding ways to bring it. If we are, we're going to know right away whether if we walk, just like you went into a regular classroom, if you see students engaged and they got their hand, that's what it's all about. So, we're always looking for ways to do that in our schools.
Outstanding.
And then our next is Educator's Handbook, and we use that as really our way of tracking discipline within the district. We've had Educator's Handbook now for a couple of years. We have Mr. McGraw in the audience here who oversees really that area, but Educator's Handbook allows a teacher, for example, to write a referral. It gets sent electronically to the administrator in charge. The administrator grabs that referral, is able to process that with the student, and then obviously contacting the parent. And once the referral has been processed, it then goes back to the teacher's inbox. So that teacher knows that there was follow-up with the student and kind of what happened at that point and what needs to be done. So it is a good tool for that, and is a good tool for tracking our discipline in the district as well. And so once again, we would like to purchase that and that's a sole source product as we move forward.
Is that price similar to what we had paid in the past?
Yes, sir, it is.
Any other questions from the committee on these two items? If not, entertain a motion to recommend approval by the full board. Motion, anybody?
Make a motion on that.
All right, need a second? Second by Candace. All in favor, say aye. Aye. It is unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5, program status. 5A is iStation. Just a little bit of background on this. We actually dove into this subject at our last meeting in May when we were talking about M-Class results. Then on June 7th, DPI made a decision to change vendors from the M-Class, which they've had for 3 years or so, to a different platform called iStation. Well, because that this happened at the very end of the school year, there were some serious concerns raised about implementation in time for the next school year. These programs are utilized at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the school year to evaluate K through 3 students' reading performance. And so it's very critical to have a baseline. So the thought was it's going to be a little tough over the summer to get everybody up to speed in order to jump right in. So the state has, as I understand it, DPI has backed up the mandate for implementation to January, but we've made the decision to move forward and utilize the regional trainings to get our staff up to speed as quickly as possible. I'm going to let others elaborate on how that's going to work. It has been very controversial change, and the legislature even got involved, and there was an amendment made to a bill that was going to give us the option to choose between the two without funding. But that hasn't gone anywhere. And from what I understand, the last I heard yesterday, there's the potential for a joint House Senate committees to still review this process and potentially change it somehow or modify it, what have you. But here we are, basically where we sit today is we will be utilizing moving forward the iStation platform as a means to test our K through 3 students for their reading abilities. And so we're going to put on a happy face and work with it. So if Dr. Breedlove or Dr. Houlihan want to discuss how we are going to get our teachers up to speed as quickly as possible, and any other comments on this transition, I'll turn it over to you.
So I'll start. So just so that the board knows, I actually used iStation when I was a principal. I purchased that for my staff, for my families, for my kids, because we wanted a digital option during the summer and during the school day for independent reading, small group instruction. iStation is a game-based, progressive, adaptive software system. So what that means is students will take an initial beginning of the year screener, and the system will basically give you your Lexile score, your reading level, and you cannot progress to the next level until you've actually read passages and answered a series of comprehension questions to get a certain level of mastery. When I was a principal, we used that and was very successful with our reading scores, highly engaging. This was before the days of Mayan, so there really wasn't another option to use for reading during the summer digitally. I did not purchase the screener system, which is what I think is taking the place of M-Class. We just used it for small group instruction, independent reading. So as far as I'm concerned, based on staff who have gone to training last week, iStation, there are a lot of myths and I think perceptions out there about this program that simply are not true. And I think that what you'll hear from staff, if they want to comment, or Dr. Breedlove, is when we went to the training last week, we're very pleasantly surprised to see how engaging this tool is. One of the comments we've seen across the state about the tool is around, the idea that teachers will not be able to sit down and listen to a child read. I've talked to parents, and that's a big concern. That's a concern that I have. And that's part of this, why I'm glad the state is giving us a semester to figure this thing out is when you get to implementation, there's two parts to this. One is how do we reduce the burden of testing on teachers, which I completely agree with. So the thought is with iStation, you could have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kids on their own device with their headsets on. That could be an iPad, it could be a laptop, it could be a desktop, actually going through the process at the beginning, middle, and end of the year of the screener. And what they're actually doing is they're looking into the screen, and there's actually, it's programmed to make you think that you're actually talking to a physical person. There's someone in that computer actually talking to you, almost like you think that it's your teacher. And so it's not necessarily just that you're reading to a blank screen. It's highly engaging, that it kind of stimulates the brain to make you think as if you're talking to a real live person. What we've seen from guidance is that if you have a situation where there are 5, 6, 7 kids on a device, the teacher can sit beside those children and listen to them read, or walk around where they are to hear them. That's a little easier said than done. I mean, as a former teacher, when you have 7, 8 kids and kindergarten kids on a device, monitoring them individually is going to be very difficult. The flip side of that is you could one-on-one sit right beside, Travis as the teacher and listen to him read as part of this screening tool. So part of what we've got to figure out is, as we implement this program, what is going to be the best practice and the feedback we get from teachers about the best way to implement this system. We just don't know right now. Going to a half-day training doesn't really tell you that. So I think the benefit that we have is getting the first semester under our belt, employing a group of teachers, K5 or K3, that can kind of be our boots on the ground with our instructional coaches to figure out how to best implement, along with other trainings that are going to happen during the next few weeks. I think we'll be in a really good position come January, but there are still a lot of unanswered questions about how we're going to implement. So I think that's one big kind of question I have around implementation. The second question that I have that hasn't been answered, I don't think, is around growth data. Historically, M-Class is used. You have a beginning of grade assessment in 3rd grade, where a growth score is calculated. Then you have your end of grade test at the end of 3rd grade, and that's how you get a growth score for reading. Well, when you don't have that beginning of grade until January, which is really your middle of grade, are you going to calculate growth from January to May? Or is there going to be a way to calculate it from September to May? Without a beginning of grade assessment through iStation, how do you do that? And so are we going to say to our teachers that it's a fair assessment of their teaching abilities to have half a year of growth? So I think that's the other kind of question that I have. But I think overall, and Dr. Breedlove can comment, I think our team under the direction of Dr. Healy and our instructional coaches and our teachers who went to the initial, I wouldn't call it a training, I'd call it an orientation, felt positive about the direction and felt positive about our ability as a school system to make this work in the best interest of students and teachers. So Dr. Breedlove, do you want to comment on any further?
The training is right now is just, it's almost being like in the sandbox, and you're just trying to figure out the program, what it is, how it works, and a little bit more in depth than that. But, Dr. Houlihan did a great job of kind of explaining the initial, what has happened initially, and then, of course, our questions around the classroom. Number one, our goal is to support our children in the best way possible. And our teachers are great at their jobs and what they do. And if this product is not a good product, they'll let us know that we need to find something different. And I trust our teachers to do that. I trust our school administrators to do that and give us good feedback. But right now, it's all about implementation and what our best practice is going to be as we move forward with this. We still have accountability measures that we will have to be prepared for, and iStation is the product that the state wants us to move forward with, and we will do the best job that we can. But bottom line is, It's our best job is what we do for Union County children. And so that's our goal.
Well, I would concur. This isn't the first time that the state has mandated some type of change or program adoption and said, well, you figure it out. That's just the world we live in. And I salute everybody for trying to, we can complain all we want to, but this is our world. So let's get after it. I also share the concerns that we are basically foregoing a half a school year's worth of measurement of growth and potentially need of a student in a critical early years of their development that could hinder them for years beyond. If I'll give you for an example, if the implementation until later in the year does not help us, because one of the things these platforms do is identify our students with reading disabilities such as dyslexia. And if a student happens to fall through the cracks because of this change in program, the lag for adoption till the first of the year, potentially it could mean a lot more than just half a year's reading growth to that student. And that concerns me, but so I fault the implementation of this, but again, here we are. And so I just applaud staff for deciding we're just going to move forward as quickly as we can, and hopefully we'll get these answers. Does anybody else have any comments?
I'm just looking at this, and I think the real danger in this was to make a knee-jerk reaction and to jump the gun on this without having information. As you mentioned, I totally trust our boots on the ground to implement this and see where we are in January. The simple fact is, when Raleigh sends it down the line, we're going to implement it. I mean, we don't have a choice one way or the other. Funding wise, I mean, we don't have the option for that. We don't know. We don't have a lot of information on it right now, but I feel better with you guys going to training and having a little bit of information on it. I am concerned about the teacher connection there, but it sounds like that's something that can be dealt with. Be positive and see what happens come January with the results on it, I think.
It's like what Mr. Sides, I agree with Mr. Kiker. It's change. Anytime you go through a change, that's hard. I think to Mr. Sides, my only comment about the concern you share, and it's a valid concern, is your iStation, just like your M class, is one point of data in time. Mm-hmm. It will not be the only point of data. So when you think about children who have potential learning disability in reading or dyslexia, our teachers and other staff will be using other assessments, not tests, because there's a difference between a test and an assessment, but other assessments through the fall semester and at the beginning of the year to identify potential gaps in learning. So I agree with Dr. Breedlove that we rely heavily on our teachers. They do an excellent job. Our data shows that historically. So we're confident that when it comes to implementation that we'll do this successfully in the best interest of our children.
Some comments I've had back to me from the public are, we're replacing our teachers with computers. And I want to address that specifically and say that is not the case. This is merely a tool. Such as Dr. Houlihan said, there are other tools and assessments that we utilize as well. The whole thing centers around trying to help the classroom teacher do his or her job to the best of their ability, providing them the best workplace that we can. And providing these tools is one step, hopefully, in that direction. We'll get over this hump, and I hope everybody will be pleasantly surprised that iStation fills a need, but we all recognize that change is hard, but still, the whole focal point of learning for our students is the classroom teacher, and in no way are we going to make any moves that replace their input and their hard work to teach our children. So I just wanted to specifically address that. Candace or Tina, do you have any other comments or questions? Okay. Tina? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move. Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to Street Safe.
Street Safe is a safe driving program that we utilized last year for the first time. It was successful. We had 2 sessions, one at Cuthbertson and one in Piedmont. We're going to repeat those locations for the 2019-2020 school year. Currently, we are working on identifying the dates and getting those to Street Safe to make sure that they can align their staff with those dates as well. Once we have the official dates, we'll come back to the curriculum committee, let you know where we are on what weekends we will be looking at those 2 venues. And so that's kind of where we are at this point, as we are still scheduling dates with Street Safe, for one for the fall and one for the spring.
Dr. Breedlove, if I could, just a comment, and if staff is not up on the status, I certainly understand. As I understand, Street Safe's ultimate funding model is to work closely with the county DA's office. The program is meant not to just address young drivers, say in the school system or in the public, but also as a how do I want to put this? A means of like a prayer for judgment, that if you go through this program, you will not get that violation. It will be expunged from your record, or it's an alternative method for the county DA's office to use to send a young driver that's had some kind of incident through the program and have their record expunged. And I think that is their ultimate funding model, that they would keep Street Safe going in the county on a regular basis. And I didn't know if staff had had any discussions with the people at Street Safe, with any discussions they've had with the DA's office and Trey Robinson, to see if there's been communication, any positive feedback for that.
We have not had, to my knowledge, any discussion with them about that side of it.
Okay.
Obviously our concerns are getting our students and families into the program. But I do, the model that you speak of is correct. And I think that though is statewide. And so just because we offer sessions here doesn't mean that all of it has to be funded locally by the DA's office here. I do think the entity itself.
Well, what I mean is, when they have the relationship with the DA's office, and the DA's office basically approves this as a means, what that means is they can then use the fines that the driver pays to finance more than just 2 sessions per year. They can have it on more of an ongoing basis, so you can serve more young drivers. But if they don't have that funding model in place in the county, and I can't remember how many they have that set up, but then they have to go to we just have a set number of sessions because that's the money we can raise for those. So if you want to get it a sustained, ongoing model, then that's where they have the relationship with the DA's office, as I understand it anyway. Yes. So I didn't know if we've been privy to any discussions they've had.
I don't think we've looked into that quite yet.
Okay.
If you remember, last year was the first year that we had this, and I believe we had one session that was canceled because of a hurricane or something happened, and then it got postponed. So we were trying to work through a lot of those kinds of issues. So I think, Mr. Sides, you're correct in the model. We just haven't looked into that at all with the county yet.
All right. Okay. And any questions on Street Safe? Mm-hmm. All righty, we'll move on to number C, Canvas training.
Canvas training. Last year, we talked about Canvas, and is Canvas being utilized and used by every teacher? The answer we all knew was no, but it is our learning management system for Union County Public Schools, and so we continue our work to ensure that we would, obviously we want to see every single teacher to have a Canvas page that students and families can access as that single point. And so we will continue that training training and helping our teachers become more familiar with Canvas that may have delayed the use of Canvas, and monitoring the use of Canvas by our teachers as well. If Canvas is the one LMS, obviously it makes it life easier for our families and our students, because as they progress throughout, their K-12 experience, it is that one item that they can come back to and access what's happening in the classroom, what are the homework assignments, how do I communicate with the teacher? And so that's really what our goal is there. So we will continue that training initially as teachers come back and throughout the school year, and then work with our principals and continue to monitor who's using it and who is not.
Okay, I'll take the blame for this, teachers, when I had personal frustrations with my son last year, his classes, with teachers' inconsistent use of Canvas. And as Dr. Breedlove said, it's impossible for a parent to monitor his students, what he has coming up. Of course, you know how it goes. They come home, they don't have any homework and they don't have any tests coming up. And then you find out on Power School that they blew this or blew that. Well, that's after the fact. My frustration was that, the Canvas page, when utilized, wasn't up to date, didn't have relevant information, was used inconsistently. And I would like to suggest, if as part of the evaluation process and performance reviews, whoever's responsible, and I think it's usually the assistant principals in the schools that are responsible, that's part of their area of monitoring. I would suggest, if we're going to be serious about this, then this needs to be part of somebody's evaluation, performance evaluation, that if we're really going to be serious to see that there's going to be consistent use, like it or not, I'm sorry, but that's the tool we're given. And I don't know what percentages of parents monitor their children's work on those, but I know at our house we try to. So, like I say, I think if we encompass that in the appropriate person's responsibilities, and they will be measured on, I think that demonstrates that we're serious about this.
Yes, sir. And we're trying to make it more appealing to teachers, as I kind of wrote here, creating templates that are more user-friendly,
Right.
and certain expectations when you use that template to fill out your class. We are meeting certain elements that is system-wide and consistent from teacher to teacher and school to school.
I wouldn't have a problem with that in the long run, but I would definitely want to ramp up to that. I would want to give them an opportunity, because some of them I think maybe are just not comfortable with that, and I would hate to implement that quickly. I would want to give them time to maybe find out, what are the problems? Why are they not using it? Before we move forward with something where we're going to make it a detriment, for not using it. But I
don't want to affect the teacher's performance. Let me clarify. I'm not talking about it's a part of the teacher's performance. I think it should be part of either the principal or the assistant principal that's responsible for monitoring that area, that if there are teachers that are uncomfortable with it, don't feel comfortable using it, or haven't been trained sufficiently, then it's their job, as it would be for any other part of their curriculum, that they get whatever they need to be able to do it. So I think more from a supervisory position, they need to be responsible to see that there are people, that any obstructions to consistent use of it are addressed.
I agree, and we will be working on that, continuing to monitor that throughout the year. So I would expect that we will be much more consistent this year than we were last year.
Anybody else, any comments on that? All righty. And we will move on to item number D, EC Cafe.
And, for this one last year, we began working with Miller's Crew to begin our own community cafe. Dr. Nolan is here.
Do you want to invite her up?
Yes, and, as I put here on the briefing, we are continuing to work to start this community cafe, and we do have a name for it, and we have the space, and we have obviously the cleanup and painting and all that being handled. And we will be, I'll turn it over to Dr. Nolan, but we are really excited about this community cafe and about the school level cafes as well.
And is the name a secret?
It is until we can inform the
Very,
students.
very secretive.
It is. The name is a secret, but I will tell you that it came from one of our students who will be working in the program.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
we will make that announcement after school starts. But the painting should be going on this week. The materials should be delivered by August 10th so that we can begin the setup, have that taken place, and begin training the students and do that soft opening as we talked about last year. So we will have more details about.
So you said soft opening. Are we going to do any kind of a
Grand.
ribbon cutting ceremony or a public kind of grand opening? I don't want a soft opening. Let's make it huge.
Well, we will then.
Yeah.
We will do that.
I mean, if we're ready. I mean,
Yes,
When you're ready.
when we're ready.
when we're ready. But yes,
Plenty of
when
dry
we're
runs.
ready, it will be a
I think
big,
that's great.
It'll be a big.
it will be a major deal.
Can I ask, what is the address?
The address is 115 Henderson Street, Monroe. It's at Signpost Ministries, but it's 115 Henderson Street.
We will have signage, correct?
Yes.
Will they'll allow us to have outside signage?
Mhm.
Trees. Okay.
What I was going to say, the classrooms, those will be delivered before kids come back, but we needed to wait for teachers to come back because, in the summer, we clean floors, we wax floors, and you put something in a school and it may not end up, when it's new, exactly where it needs to be. So we were just waiting for all of that to be taken care of before we get the classrooms at the schools.
Can I interrupt you before you leave that? Is that going to be a cafe in each EC classroom, like the other Miller's Crew workstation that we taken on, or is it going to be in select areas?
The cafe could be at a school if that's what they chose, but
Okay.
many of the teachers chose a different type of entrepreneurship or workshop for their students, based on their students' likes, based on the teachers' abilities. Some people are craftier than others, and some, that's just not them. So looking at all different options they had, and Miller's Crew has been working very closely with Mrs. Little and with the teachers so that the teachers get what they want and need and will work for their kids.
So how many classroom cafes do you anticipate having?
I don't know the exact number of cafes for classrooms. I'll have to check on that.
Is that like a mini of the community cafe? So like a training ground where the student can start there in his classroom cafe, kind of work his way up to the community cafe? Is that the thought process?
It is. Now, all of them will be training for the community cafe.
Okay.
So every school, and we will have
High school age or
high
what?
school age.
Okay.
Our TTA classes and some of our OCS will
Okay.
possibly work there. So we will have a schedule for each school as to when they are working there. And the kids will be training in their classroom. So they would have some of those training pieces like making coffee. All of them will have making change, taking orders, all of that. So there's some components of all of it in every single one. Others would be more specific, but I can find out for you where the cafe pieces would be located.
What were the hours, the business hours for the community cafe? Will it be open on Saturdays, just during the school day? What do you anticipate?
Right now, because we would be staffing it with school personnel
Right.
and with school students, it would be during the school day.
And what time do you anticipate your hours of operation? Do you have that yet?
We don't have that yet.
Okay.
We will have that a little bit closer.
Okay. All righty. All right, anyone have any questions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All righty. Next meeting date.
I actually would like to propose, Dr. Breedlove, that we table that until we can do some further discussion. If you look at the calendar, the next window of the curriculum committee would fall in the first week of school.
First week of school.
And I know that first week, we have staff in schools throughout Monday through Friday. So I'd like to talk to Dr. Breedlove, Mr. Sides, and give you a different recommendation. That might be that, after Labor Day in September, or maybe one earlier than usual, in 3 weeks instead of 4. So can we come back to you on that?
Sure. Is that okay with the rest of the committee?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll table item number 6 then. All right, that's all I have. Any other business come before the committee? All right, hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Need a second? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.